The first verdict is, we, the jury, upon our oaths and law and evidence in this case, find the defendant not guilty of felonious assault as charged in count 1 of the indictment signed this 21st day of November 2025 by each and every juror.
Black intelligence. The dust of history ain't settled yet. It just shifts. It just finds a new corner to hide until the wind picks up and reveals the same old ground underneath. And right now, that wind is howling. There is a story, a terrible, heartbreaking, necessary story that is trying to rise from the silence, but the weight of the system is pushing it down. We cannot let that happen. We cannot let the memory of what was stolen fade into the timeline of forgotten injustices. There is a profound truth here, a truth soaked in pain and screaming for recognition, and we have to make this trend. Make this trend. We have to make this trend, please. We have to flood the timeline with the reality of what it costs to live in a world that refuses to see your full humanity. Because this story isn't just history. This story is happening right now, in the kitchen, in the car, on the doorstep of every single home that carries the weight of the struggle. Look at the weight we carry every single morning. That weight is the universal bridge, the connection that ties the past to the present moment, you living right now. Every Black person you know walks around already tired. You know that tiredness? It ain't the tiredness that a nap can fix. It's the exhaustion of perpetually being overlooked, of consistently having your humanity questioned before you even open your mouth. It's the deep, soul-weary feeling of being perpetually betrayed by institutions you were promised would protect you. Maybe you felt it when you were denied that loan, or when you were passed over for that promotion, or when you had to bite your tongue and swallow that piece of injustice just to keep your job and protect your peace. You walk into a space, your body is already screaming, "I am exhausted," because you know you have to prove once again that your presence is valid. Now take that weight, that daily, chronic fatigue, and imagine someone carrying not just their own history, not just their own exhaustion, but the promise of a future yet to arrive, a life not yet born. That is the frame through which we must view the story of Kiya Young. Kiya, say her name. Say it slowly, with the reverence due to a martyr and the empathy due to a young mother. She was 22 years old, a young woman navigating life in Blendon Township, Ohio. She was a daughter, an auntie, a friend, already a dedicated mother to 2 small, bright-eyed boys. 2 young kings who woke up every morning relying on her smile, her presence, her voice. Her life was rooted in the fierce, protective love of her family. She was the light of her grandmothers, Nadine Young and Danielle Rivers, who watched her grow and flourish despite the challenges life throws at young Black women in America. Kiya was the steady presence for her children, trying, striving, hustling for that sense of normalcy and safety that should be every citizen's birthright. And here is the profound, beautiful weight she carried. She was pregnant, expecting her first daughter, a little princess due to arrive in November of that year, 2023. She wasn't an activist in the traditional sense. She wasn't leading a march on Washington. She was simply living her life, providing for her existing sons, preparing for the expansion of her world. She was the personification of Black future, Black potential, Black promise. She was the embodiment of the Black maternal hope, a fragile, determined hope that insists on flourishing even in hostile ground. That is who Kiya Young was. She was the future holding the future. This story, this tragedy, did not begin with a high-speed chase or a violent standoff. It began with the most mundane, routine aspect of life, a trip to the supermarket. It was a late August afternoon, August 24th, 2023. Kiya was sitting in her silver sedan parked outside a Kroger grocery store in the parking lot, The air was thick with the late summer heat, the kind of heat that makes patience thin and nerves short. According to reports, a store employee suspected her of shoplifting, a theft, a misdemeanor, something barely worth a parking ticket, certainly not a death sentence. We must remember this starting point, an allegation of petty crime, not an act of terror, not a violent confrontation, but the system was already set on a trajectory that demanded maximum force. The police were called. Not security, not a manager, the police. This is the first critical failure point in the structural matrix of injustice, the over-policing of black spaces and the immediate escalation of minor infractions into potential life or death situations. Two officers approached her car, their body cameras clicking on, recording every second of the encounter that would seal her fate and expose the raw nerve of injustice in this country again. The officers, one identified as Connor Grubb, demanded she step out of the vehicle. Now put yourself in her place. You are young, you are black, you are visibly pregnant, and you are being confronted over a claim you may or may not have made. You know instinctively that the stakes are never low. You know that even a simple disagreement can spiral into catastrophe. Kiya refused to get out. She was trying to create boundaries, trying to maintain some small measure of control in a situation that was rapidly escalating beyond reason. But the officers were not there for clarity. They were there for compliance. And when compliance is the only acceptable answer, your humanity, your fear, your pregnancy, your reason, the two small children waiting for you at home becomes irrelevant. One officer stood at her driver's side door, repeatedly demanding she exit the vehicle. The second officer, Connor Grubb, moved directly to the front of her car, placing his hand forcefully on the hood. He was positioned directly in front of the vehicle, intentionally placing himself in the path of escape. This detail, this precise positioning is critical because it shows a dangerous, aggressive escalation, a choice to physically blockade a person who was attempting to leave a low-stakes interaction. This was not a response to a threat. It was the creation of a confrontation. Kiya started the engine. She began to slowly turn the wheel, trying to pull away from the space. The movement was slow, minimal, barely a roll, a desperate, flawed attempt to find an exit ramp off a highway of escalating tension. It was not a high-speed threat. It was a slow, pregnant woman trying to drive away from an unnecessary confrontation. That minimal movement, that simple attempt to reclaim her safety, was instantly interpreted as the gravest threat. Officer Grubb stepped back, drew his weapon, and pointed it directly at the driver's side windshield. And in the space of less than 1 second, the time it takes to draw a breath, the time it takes to blink, before the car had barely moved a few feet, he fired. The single shot ripped through the glass and struck Kiya Young. The sound, captured on the body camera footage, is a chilling testament to the finality of that decision. The car coasted forward, hitting a brick wall before stopping. Kiya Young was killed instantly, and the future she carried, her unborn daughter, was extinguished with her. In a supermarket parking lot over a claim of shoplifting, a 22-year-old mother was executed and 2 generations of black life were brutally erased. The official cause of death for both was the bullet fired by Officer Grubb. That is the raw, unfiltered truth of her martyrdom. The system did not just take a life, it executed a future. And what did the system do next? The system, which always runs on justification, immediately began the process of protecting its own. They released the footage, yes, but what did they talk about? They talked about her past, any minor traffic infractions, any small error in her history, to paint the fallen as somehow deserving of their fate. They talked about the fact that she was driving away, attempting to frame the incident as a necessary life or death confrontation for the officer. The core injustice that an officer chose to use a lethal weapon over an unarmed pregnant woman over a misdemeanor was immediately swallowed by the machinery of technicality and the narrative of officer safety. They were trying to erase the sheer unbearable irony of the situation. Her death immediately ignited a painful, familiar conversation across the nation and especially within our community. It wasn't just about police brutality. It was about the specific, agonizing vulnerability of Black motherhood. We know the statistics. We know that pregnant Black people are more likely to die in childbirth, more likely to have their babies die than their white counterparts. The very act of bringing life into this world is a higher stakes gamble for us. And Kiya's death added a terrifying, chilling layer to that reality. That even the encounter with law enforcement added another threat to both her and her unborn baby's lives. The community mobilized. Advocates like Carla White Carey and her family's legal team refused to let the system close the book easily. There was hope when the case was passed to a special prosecutor, and increased effort in recent years to avoid potential biases between police officers and local prosecutors. The officer, Connor Grubb, was indicted on murder charges, a rarity, a sliver of hope that accountability might finally be served. For a fleeting moment, the world thought the needle might finally move toward justice. But you see, the law is not blind. The law is a structure built on a foundation. And if that foundation was laid with the bricks of oppression, then the house will forever tilt towards injustice. The indictment was a powerful symbolic victory, a fleeting acknowledgement of the crime. But the system is built with multiple layers of protection, layers designed to exhaust the people fighting it. They rely on you getting tired. They rely on you running out of money. They rely on you losing hope. And then came the verdict. After months of anticipation, the officer who shot and killed Kiya Young was acquitted on all counts, including murder and manslaughter. The legal system determined that the officer's fear and reaction, even when resulting in the death of a pregnant woman over a shoplifting claim, was justified within the parameters of the law. The system guarded its own. The acquittal of Connor Grubb is not a legal anomaly. It is a systemic declaration that Black life, no matter how innocent, will always be treated as the exception, never the rule. The acquittal of Connor Grubb is not the end of a trial. It is a profound historical echo that rings back to the days of Medgar Evers, to Emmett Till, to every single time the perpetrator of racial violence walked away free because the color of the victim's skin made their life cheap in the eyes of the law. The law talked about procedure, about evidence, about technicalities, but we know the real technicality is the value assigned to the life that was lost. And the tragedy here is compounded by the fact that the tools we fought for, the body cameras, the public records, the right to record, often serve merely to document the injustice, not to stop it. We have video evidence, a clear, undisputed record of the failure. And yet the system digests that proof and still coughs up the same verdict, not guilty. This is the moment where we must move past simple outrage and move into structural analysis. We must recognize that the law is not blind. The law is a structure. And if that structure was built to protect one group while policing another, it will always reach the same conclusion. This fight requires intellectual rigor. It requires us to move past simple outrage and into strategic action. We honor her not by crying alone, but by committing to the work of change together. We honor her by becoming the vigilant watchmen, the ones who refuse to let the powerful hide behind technicalities. We honor her by ensuring that her name and the truth of what happened to her remains loud, persistent, and viral in the consciousness of the world. Her loss must fuel our collective action. It must turn our exhaustion into relentless resilience, transforming our righteous indignation into structural reform. The narrative of her life and the injustice of her death is a profound spiritual document. It is a lesson in power, in pain, and in the enduring strength of a people who have never stopped fighting for dignity. Do not let this moment pass quietly. Do not let her story be filed away under solved or closed. It is open. The wound is open, and we must tend to it with a sacred commitment to justice. We must transform the memory of the loss into the fuel for the future. We must make this history the headline that refuses to fade. The blood of the martyr is the seed of the movement. We must ensure that Kiya Young's sacrifice is not forgotten, not diluted, and not excused. We must demand generational justice for her 2 young sons, and for the little daughter she never got to hold. And if this story moved your spirit, if this truth is hitting different right now, I need you to do 5 things for the legacy and for the movement. First, drop a comment below and tell us which part of their story hit you the hardest. That feedback is vital. Second, share this video with 5 people who need to hear this unfiltered truth. Third, subscribe to Black Lives Matter and join the most dedicated community committed to Black history. Fourth, hit the bell icon to turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next chapter in our fight for generational justice. And finally, tell us this: whose story, whose sacrifice, whose fight for freedom should we cover next?